Okay, so we're still on the Yellow Brick Road. But you can't see this. I'm having some magic coffee this morning. Thank you, Kayla. I love this cup. Oh my gosh. So wanted to share something with you guys. I'm gonna grab my glasses here so I can see what I'm doing. I got some actually the blue things for the computer. I don't know, it'll probably just blind people, but anyway. Yep, there. Oh, look, you can see the, wow, okay, whatever. If I could figure out how to make lenses that didn't reflect, I could retire on a yacht in the Greek Isles. I could. Anyway, I was looking at, I don't know if you guys can see this, but it's just, yep, over here. It's a metronome app. And there are a bunch. This one's free, surprisingly. I don't know, why would they make you pay for a metronome? That's the stupidest thing. Anyway, I opened it up and there it says 60. 60. 60 strokes a second is 60 words a minute, basically. But listen to this. If you can hear this. Okay. That's 60. Let's double it. It's 120. Does it sound that much faster? Your fingers are having to go faster. You're having to think faster. You're having to respond faster. You're at that breaking point where you can think about, I can't even keep my thing steady. You can think about the strokes. You can think about, am I doing it right? You can think about, is there a brief for that? You can think about, am I writing that without hesitating? That's 120. Did you go to the scene of the accident? Question mark. Answer. You can think that fast. If you can think that fast, you can write that fast. It is that simple. But there's a whole lot of processing going on in between point A and point B. And when your conscious mind gets in the way, then your flow of fast is interrupted. And that's why, to be a great reporter, you got to be out of your mind. You've literally got to be out of your conscious, analytical, solution-seeking mind. You've got to keep practicing to the point where that stuff comes so automatically that you know it's deep in your subconscious, and you could literally, I used to think attorneys were crazy when they would sit back and say, oh yeah, you guys aren't even listening, you're just writing. And I'm like, who told you that? Who told you that? But we kind of are. Not entirely. I mean, I dare to say that in, the national speed test, or Mark Hilsingberry going for a world record, he's not got time to think. He does not have time to think about how he's going to write. It's coming automatically. How do you get it automatically? You get it automatically by doing it repeatedly. Your brain learns by repetition. You learn the stuff up in your head. And then to write fast, you've got to drop it down. Your subconscious lives in your body. When I say, there's your thinking mind and then there's your feeling mind. And that's your subconscious. And that is embodied in your body. This was news to me. Even after going through a hypnosis school, hypnotherapy school, neuro-linguistic programming, 2 solid years of training, and I still didn't understand. Oh, because I kept thinking, your conscious mind is up in your brain and your subconscious is, I don't know, somewhere else. No, it's not. It's in your body, which is why you feel the feelings you feel when you get triggered and you feel anxiety before a test, when you're feeling nervous, when you're feeling unsure, when you're going into the unknown, when you're going into the test that my life depends on. By the way, none of them do, unless somebody's following you in there and they've got your family in the car and they're going to kill them if you don't pass your test. Otherwise, that's just your brain fucking with you. The test is just the next step. And the more pressure you put on yourself, the more times you're going to have to repeat that step. So, as a lot of successful reporters will tell you, and some of this testing was not easy for everybody. It's not easy for almost anybody, but there are certain ones out there who say things like, I showed up for every test just giving it my all, because that's what I'm going to do out in the field when I'm reporting. And I can't give it more than my all, but I'm going to be ready and I'm going to show up. And I think it was Rose Detloff who said, you know, there are tests that I will pass. I don't know which ones they are. So I'm going to show up ready for every single one of them, but I'm going to pass them. That's a message that you can tell your brain, that you don't have to know when, you don't have to know which one, you don't have to even know how, and you may not even know you have passed it until you have passed it. But it doesn't matter. You show up 150% every single time, ready to give it your all, ready to do your best. And then, having analyzed the process of the test, the process of a 5-minute or a 10-minute take, depending on where you are, I want you to analyze your process from beginning to end. Because most people, and it's different for everybody a little bit, but for most people, they will tell you, man, I start strong and I finish strong. And there's some stuff in the middle that happens that I don't like. Like, okay. Some people will describe it as, man, I'm writing really, I mean, I'm shaking, I'm a little scared, I'm nervous because, oh my God, it feels like I'm getting this. For about a minute, 2 minutes, I'm in. And then all of a sudden, all hell breaks loose. I miss a stroke, or I drag a letter, or I drop a word, and my brain goes on fire, telling me how stupid I am and that there's a brief for that and that I messed up and I might as well quit now because I've already failed, which is bullshit, by the way. That part of you, I remember taking the California CSR and we're allowed 50 errors. And my brain literally said, you dropped something. You drug a letter in there. Look at that. You are only allowed 50 errors. You might as well quit. You've failed already. And it would take me another 30 years to construct that little message from that frantic part of my brain, because I missed one, I drug a letter, and now I'm allowed 50, but I'm going to fail. Where'd the other 48 go? And I'm supposed to trust the part of my brain that can't even add? I don't think so. That part of you is not you. It's a part of your brain's toolbox. It's your analytical and solution creative part. And we do not need it when we're taking down the dictation. We need it desperately when we're in the transcription part of the test, which is why it's so important to take it down and write it out. Take it down, transcribe it, take it down, transcribe it, evaluate it, take it down, transcribe it, evaluate it, grade it, know exactly where you are in the process of taking a test. You know, we got this weird idea that writing it down on the machine is really all we got to do. No, that's like, I don't know, playing violin, and you can pick it up and you can tune it. And, you know, you played with some of the, you know, where some of the notes are over here. You know where all the notes are slowly, you know. But then there's this bow thing, and then there's this, oh, you got to tune it. And then there, oh, we got to put the rosin on the bow, and we've got to play along with the rest of the music, which is the voices coming at us. There's more to it than just writing it down on the machine. You got to be able to write it down on the machine. You got to be able to get it out in print. if that's your job out in the field, then you get to get really, really good at not just taking it down, but transcribing it. This is a process that goes through you as the professional to hear the words that were said in the way they were said, in the sequence and the intonation and the punctuation and all those things, to be able then, you as the processing vehicle, to then produce a final product that reads precisely as it was spoken. You got to get it down, you got to get it out. And to pass tests, you've got to practice getting it down. Yeah. Most of you who I've worked with are spending way too much time practicing getting it down. And where you're falling, where you're not using all the talents and the feedback available to you, is you're not transcribing something every single day. And I dare say, how many of you are actually reading back your notes? And I hated reading back, so I get it. I hated it. It was like, please. And we had to do it in a circle. There would be like 10 of us sitting in a circle. Somebody got some god awful material from somewhere and dictated it to us faster than we could write for 10 minutes. 10 minutes. And then we had to turn around and one by one in the circle read back until we faltered. And then the next person would pick up. And then the next person would pick up until it got to Jan Brown, who owns Jan Brown and Associates in San Francisco now. And then the rest of us might as well go have lunch, because Jan never faltered. I mean, she just freaking got it every single time. And we just kind of sit there in amazement like, oh my God, was that what it was? As we're going through our notes. Reading your notes back is not just a practice of torturing you. There's something psychologically, neurologically going on in your brain while you're trying to look at your notes and read them back. There is something else you can do that's almost as good, almost, and it requires less effort. So that probably will get your attention. But if you take a short take at the very end of each day, and then at the beginning of the next day, your notes are cold, but at the beginning of the next day, either challenge yourself to read those notes back and circle the parts that you can't, circle the parts where you falter. That's one way of doing it. Or you can sit back and grade, evaluate your notes by looking at them as if you were actually going to read them back, putting in the audio and listening for what you heard while you're looking at what you wrote. And circle the things that you faltered on. Circle the things that didn't come out precisely the way you wanted them to. Circle the areas where you dropped, where you lost it. And try to look at it, consciously, since this is a problem-solving analytical part of you. Look at those notes and say, is there a pattern here? Is there something I'm doing that I could consciously fix? Is there something that's happening right before I drop that I could be conscious of and therefore not at the whim of? And then there's something that, was it, I always forget who did this. It was amazing. But sitting down and, having your cup of coffee in the morning and listening to your notes and just letting your brain hear what it heard when it wrote what it wrote, and let all that stuff happen in the background, because it does. If you do this every single day, there's a part of you that will see things you could never see, that will start fixing the way you write and changing up how you hear things and how you respond to things, and how you don't falter when that thing happens. Because it will see, oh, every time that kind of thing happens, then I falter. So we got to do one of two things. Either we're going to allow that thing to happen and we're not going to falter, or we're going to notice that thing is happening and fix it so we don't falter. You don't have to do anything. Just show up, listen to the notes that you wrote for a few minutes yesterday, and let your brain evaluate on its own. Just look, no judgment, no comparison, just go through the process. It's part of what's happening in the background. It's part of speed building. And also, for those of you who think, because you start on thinking patterns of, I'm not practicing enough, so therefore I'm not getting the results. Is that true? I mean, is that true? Maybe you aren't practicing as much as you want to. Maybe you aren't getting the results that you want, but maybe the two aren't connected, because you are probably putting in more neurological practicing time than you think you are. Because if you're listening to anything and writing in your head, your brain is firing the same way as if you were sitting in front of a machine with tactile contact, or mask writers, transform this to suit what your method is. But there's something going on that is equivalent to practicing, even when you're not in front of the machine. And so give yourself some credit for that, because if you are putting in more hours than you think you are, then maybe the two aren't connected. I'm not practicing enough, so therefore I'm not passing the tests. Maybe the two aren't connected at all. Maybe you're practicing just fine. Maybe your proofreading really sucks. Maybe you don't understand the punctuation, which I didn't. I hated punctuation. It's like, I can riddle a transcript with commas because I'm not sure where they go, so I put them everywhere. Or I can extract the commas completely because I'm so afraid to put them somewhere that I don't know where to put them. I won't put them anywhere. And I've done all of that. And so I get it. The only thing I knew for sure was that every sentence began with a capital letter unless it had dashes in front of it. And every sentence ended with a piece of punctuation, like ellipses or dashes or periods or question marks, or sometimes quotes were thrown in there. But there was always something that ended each thought, each sentence. That's really all I felt confident about. Oh, and colons with capital letters after them. Oh, dear God. And each school will teach you something different about how to punctuate. I know, because when I was in 8th grade, and I remember thinking, in 7th grade, man, I was awesome at punctuation. I was like, I knew my English. I was like on fire until I got in 8th grade and met a teacher who thought about it all differently. And nothing I did was right. And nothing, I couldn't figure out what happened. This is how I was taught. Well, that was wrong. This is how I was taught. Well, you got it wrong. She would never have taught you that. And I'm thinking, I fucking got A's. Of course she taught me that. Of course she did. Not to understand that, everybody's got a different philosophy. From each firm out there, old school, new school, middle school, I never went to school, I don't really care, I'm going to punctuate it how I want to, agencies out there that will tell you how they want it punctuated. Everybody does it differently. That's why you need to rely on an authority, Morrison's, or just a style manual. And it doesn't really even matter what authority you decide to go with, because now you at least have authority for what you're doing. This is why I'm doing what I'm doing. It's not just because I woke up this morning and do I do that Oxford comma thing, or is it this comma, and that? Or I don't know. Decide what you're going to do and just do it. Decide what your school wants you to do to get out of school and do it. And then be flexible enough to be in the real world and figure out, what does my agency want me to do? And can I sleep at night if I punctuate like they want me to? And if you've got authority for doing what you want to do, how you do it, then you do it the way you want to do it. And if your agency goes up against that, maybe that's not the agency you need to be working for. Because if you love your product as much as I do, as much as most of us do out in the field, you want to reflect the professionalism and the hours and the the time of your life that you sacrifice to become as proficient and amazing as you are out in the field, and own it. Own it with every bit of your being, because it's who you're becoming, even if you're if you're at 60 today, even if you're at 120 today, it doesn't matter. You're learning who you are, and you're learning to own your gift, and you're learning to appreciate and own the time that you're trading for the life that you're looking forward to when you get out. So with that, I got to get to work. Love you guys. Have a great day, and I'll talk to you soon, probably more often and longer than you want. Skin, Kayla.